this service that we talk about today, that I'll be talking about, is called Grove dSOC. It's built specifically for Darktrace, so we don't collect logs from everywhere all the time. We simply take whatever Darktrace gives us and we use that as the intelligence. So it is important to upfront to mention that the dSOC service is centered. It's aptly named dSOC, Darktrace Secure Operations Center. So it is geared for existing Darktrace customers. So just in case you don't know what Darktrace is, very briefly, it's a IA or AI solution that builds knowledge about your environment, uses the intelligence that it gathers to find out what's normal in your environment. The core components of Darktrace are detect and respond. So the detect, as you would see, it says see attacks immediately, and then of course respond is the ability to mitigate or to disarm those threats quite quickly and quite easily. There are other elements to Darktrace, but for the most part, detect and respond is the core of the service. There are many plugins. You can connect to email, you can connect to SaaS, and so on and so forth. But that is really what Darktrace is all about. It's about finding what's normal in your environment and then looking for deviations from that environment. And through its machine learning capability, it knows what's normal within your environment. So some of the talking points about the relationship between Grove and Darktrace is that we've been a partner of the year, 3 years running, which is quite significant, a global partner of the year. We've been a partner since 2018 as well, and that's also significant because as an early adopter, we performed many tasks end to end when a customer was on board with Darktrace. We were responsible, for example, for the sizing calls. We were responsible for the installation or deployment. We also responsible for the feedback sessions, those what they call threat intelligence reports, or the TIR sessions. We would have ran those as well. So very involved with the entire process. Whereas nowadays, partners have a lot less to do. So with that, we obviously learned a lot about Darktrace, the technology, and the ins and outs of the technology. All of our Darktrace analysts are certified, Darktrace certified. So that means that they go through a 12-week learning program. During that program, they ingest mostly Darktrace stuff. All of it is about Darktrace. We have the information that customers have access to, those online learning platform. We also have our own curriculum, which we've developed, which serves two purposes, helps the customer and helps our analysts become certified. After that 12 weeks, they are eligible to write a 2-day exam, which the customers have the access to as well. It's a first day of a written exam and then the second day a practical exam. So you get asked to apply the knowledge you've learned within Darktrace in this exam. Just a few things as well is that we reckon that we are the most advanced MSSP, or we have the most advanced MSSP model for Darktrace. There are many partners across the globe, and comparatively, we are quite comfortable in making that statement that we have the most advanced MSSP model for Darktrace. And you'll look at the middle one, bottom middle, it talks about beta contributor, and that is where the head of dev and our JK, which we'll be talking shortly, are in constant communication with each other about improving and where we get asked to participate in beta testing as well. So long-standing relationship, lots of intelligence gathered between us and Darktrace over the years. The next slide talks about the value prop. Why do we think dSOC is so important? Why is it so great? There's a few things I'm going to mention, not all encompassing, but it certainly does cover some of the more key factors about why we think we are that great. So first thing is time to value. So reaping the value of a tool is quite important. If you go full SOC, and it is a different kettle of fish, but if you do go full SOC, that process could take weeks if you're extremely lucky. Months is more likely, and quarters or even years sometimes. Depends on the level of complexity and size of your organization. That does make a big difference. So in contrast, if you have Darktrace and you plug in dSOC, you get your first report the very next day. So the value is almost immediate in terms of getting value out of your investment in a service like dSOC. Maximize Darktrace investment. This goes without saying. Darktrace is a premium product. It's been a game changer over the last few years, but it comes with the premium price tag. So when you invest a big portion of your budget in a single technology like Darktrace, it's important that you maximize the value of Darktrace. And that's one of our aims, is to make sure that you get the best out of Darktrace. We offer a SLA. Suffice it to say that all of the actions we take, all of the remediation tasks we assist with, all of the recommendations we make will be within a service level agreement. And that's quite important. You know, the Darktrace themselves might not offer a SLA, and that's for good reason. They're a tech vendor, not a services supplier as Grovies. So that's quite important to make sure that everything is governed by a service level agreement. We help customers achieve the full Darktrace cyber maturity scale. What that basically means is, as your capability matures, you become more proactive and less reactive. To be in a reactive state can be quite disastrous. You could be in a state where you are always at the back foot, trying to respond into things all the time. Whereas if you move over to, or the paradigm shift to get to a more proactive state, this is where you are able to predict with a certain level of accuracy. With a tool like Darktrace, other tools, of course, can offer this information, but with a tool like Darktrace, you get to a point where you're able to predict certain threats with a high level of accuracy. So it's about that paradigm shift from being reactive to being more proactive. And the best way to do that is to spend time on the tool. And that's exactly what we do. Our aim is to make sure we do the daily grind, that daily reporting, daily check-in, and that's how we're able to get you to that state where you're able to predict threats in the future. We offer a 24/7 proactive service. So we've always had reactive 24/7 services where you could tap into our resources 24/7, 365, any day of the week, any day of the month. You could tap into our resources and a conversation or an investigation could ensue. With our active monitoring service, we've taken the flip side of that and we said, let's focus on those high severity issues. So let's say, for example, there's an attack, a ransomware attack within your environment. We're able to respond very quickly. So we have an alerting system. So as soon as your threat visualizer or your appliance complains about ransomware or data exfiltration or something very serious, we get alerted immediately. We then follow a 1-10-30 principle. That means 1 minute to find, and that's easy through our alerting system, 10 minutes to investigate, and 30 minutes to mitigate. And that mitigation is key because it means that we're going to get hold of you at 2 o'clock in the morning because we do rely on the customer for the mitigation part. Sometimes it is required that we wake you up and sometimes not. And there's a course of action that will decide that. And that is whether respond has actually done what it needs to do in order to contain that threat. But there's obviously more to talk about that point. So it's quite a useful service to know that you have coverage 24/7 whenever there are very serious events or incidents that have occurred. Cyber skills gaps. So this is a hot cake at the moment. Everybody is feeling the pain of not having enough skills. I mean, you might have skills, but to duplicate or to have many skills on tap is a challenge. I mean, we have many very skilled people in the industry in the world today, but there's not too many of them. So it's very scarce. And how does dSOC address that issue? Well, we offer a multi-layer or multi-level analysts. So the first level, of course, are the ones you'd be exposed to daily. They will be drafting the daily reports and sending them to you. And then it can also be the first contact or first line of support, and you would be able to talk to these analysts to understand the risk or to unpack the risk further. The second level are usually team leads. They are also the first point of escalation. So if the event or incident requires a bit more detail, a bit more delving into, then the second level will become applicable and you'll deal with those people. Then at the top of that, we have the third level, subject matter experts, a bit more skill and time in the game. And they usually run our threat hunting optimization sessions. So more strategic thinking and less operational in terms of the daily indicators of compromise and reporting and so on and so forth. And then the last point, last value prop is that we reckon that we're a fraction of the cost if you consider the amount of effort that it requires to source, so recruiting, skilling up, and maintaining that skill level, and then of course retaining people. As people become more experienced and more skilled, they will move on. It's just the nature of the game. And if you consider 24/7, if you really are serious about security, you have to take a 24/7 approach. And to have people readily available is also quite a factor to consider. So we reckon that all of that comes bundled within dSOC at a fraction of the cost that you expect to play to build that team. And quite frankly, if you're not a large multinational or a bank or a mining house, you're not really going to want to invest too much money or time and effort into building an internal SOC. So the best thing is to travel with on the road that someone who's been there before, I guess.
Before you hand over, we have a question.
Yes.
Question is, I'm going to read it as is. Is the service, if receiving support, for example, a ransomware attack, embedded in the support contract, or is it an additional service that the customer should pay for upfront?
So as it relates to 24/7 service, if I understand correctly, so whenever there's a ransomware attack, the very serious attacks, if you are subscribed to our 24/7 AM service, we will contact you no matter what time of the day that event occurs. So if it occurs at 2 o'clock in the morning, we are going to make contact. But it does depend, Bianca. So let's say, for example, there's an incident and Respond has contained it. We're not going to wake you up. There's no need to. The threat has been contained. Darktrace has done its part as far as automation is concerned. If, however, it's not properly contained, and we'll evaluate that. We'll make sure whether it's been sufficiently contained. And if not, that's when we'll invoke the emergency contact process and get hold of the relevant stakeholders to make sure we isolate and reduce the risk as quickly as possible.
So in short, it's part of the service. It's not an additional cost.
Yeah, so it is additional cost. It's a part of the elite package with 24/7 AM support. Yeah. So
yes. Okay. So that's it's part of the package service. So one of the options in the package service.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks. So what do we do? This is very briefly. I'm going to go through this very briefly about what it is we actually do. So your appliance has a GUI called the Threat Visualizer, and that's where our analysis starts. We log onto your Threat Visualizer. We always look at the day that was, the last 24 hours, and we divide this report into a few sections. So it's an email report. It's tabular in nature, and it's divided into several sections. The first one being the EM. So if there are any of those high severity, they'll get their own space in the top of the report. There's a deep dive. So we do, for example, root cause analysis. We will do an impact analysis and then make recommendations about what you think you should be doing. The next part of the report is notable breaches and also other breaches. They're more or less in the same part of the report. The color coding differentiates them. So for this part of the report, we look at severity and put them into different buckets. But there are other things, other elements. The AI also dictates where we put them in. Tagging also makes a difference as to where they fall in terms of whether they're notable or just other breaches. So it's not just severity. There are other factors as well. Then compliance breach analysis. These are those things that are risks in your environment. So they're not under attack, or let's say threats rather. They are not under attack right now. But if you leave them, they certainly will become exposed and exploited at some point. A simple analogy is if you consider a home or a house. If the back door is left open, at some point, someone's going to use that back door to gain entry, to breach your perimeter security. So we tell you that, hey, the back door is open, you need to close it, you need to secure that back door. That's the kind of thing that we do with the compliance breach analysis. I'm going to gloss over to the blue block, which is quite important, daily IOC emails. As I alluded to earlier, I said that we do this daily. So we get to see those early deviations from the patterns of life because we're doing this daily. So we find out what those deviations are, and we talk with the customer. We're quite engaging with the customer. We'd send that report. There's a section where the customer can provide feedback. And of course, any customer can call us at any time when just want to have a conversation about it. But I think it's important to say that we play in the reconnaissance level or the reconnaissance stage of an active attack. So we would look at a malicious actor's behavior early on and identify those activities that are anomalous, that are deviations from the patterns of life. And that's very important. And that's why it makes it so much easier to get rid of threats at that level as opposed to lower down. And then the last part is a threat hunting optimization session. And this is where we go through your environment, look at areas of risk, look at areas of vulnerability, make recommendations. We rate your environment in terms of your cyber security posture. And then we always talk about making sure you get to a point which is in the low or medium to low level. If you're on the high level, you've got too many EMs, you've got too many critical things happening, and that's exactly where you don't want to be. So our aim is to always try and keep you in the medium to low or low level when it comes to that reporting. I'm going to hand over to JK in a moment. I just wanted to leave you guys with something that was said by Francesca Bowen, who is from Darktrace. She was the head of partnerships at the time of making this statement. And she has said, Grove has invested heavily over the years in building out their sales and SOC services with Darktrace in order to deliver our technology at incredible scale and speed, delivering a partnership with innovation and excellence at its heart. And that's quite a stirring compliment, I think. And that's just testament to the services and also our sales effort that we've managed to gain or produce over the years.